The chances of Garrett Wilson getting traded dramatically changed when the Jets announced that they're parting ways with Aaron Rodgers. And a certain Jets team reporter is joining us on the show to say that means the excuses are done for one Garrett Wilson. Let's ride, baby. Boy Green Daily starts now.
I'm going to lose my gosh darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
I made it clear that my intention was to play, and my intention was to play for the New York Jets.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your friggin' podcasts, baby. And before we get started, I see MFC just hit the re-sign button. We love to see it. He rejoins us as a Boy Green Coffee Club member, which means another raffle ticket for MFC. Hopefully a few other members of the New York Jets are hitting the re-sign button. You see what I did there? Anywho. All right, I guess let's just get to the show. My special guest here every Wednesday is none other than Jets team reporter Nick Feria to get into all this Garrett Wilson business and so much more. He joined us here on the show. What's up, Nick Feria?
How's everything going, Paul? Great to be back on.
Yeah, well, let's get into it here. So there's a lot of layers here. I guess we'll start off with the latest nugget. So ESPN's Rich Cimini shared on Sunday that the chances of Garrett Wilson being traded away by the New York Jets dramatically changed when they announced the eventual parting of ways with Aaron Rodgers. Again, Rodgers will eventually be cut. That's going to be happening next month at the new league year when that arrives. Here's the direct quote from Cimini in his Sunday column. Quote, Rodgers' departure greatly increased the chance of Garrett Wilson's return to the New York Jets. There appeared to be tension in their relationship last season, starting with heated conversation on the field in camp. It bubbled up late in the season, fueling speculation that Wilson might ask for a trade. And specifically, NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport at the end of December here, Nick, said if Aaron Rodgers returns, among the options Garrett Wilson will consider is requesting a trade. So that report came out from NFL Network like, hey, man, Garrett's saying I don't want to play with Aaron Rodgers, and now Aaron Rodgers is gone. So now we take it back to you, Nick Feria. You wrote a fascinating column for Athlon Sports this week that I don't think a lot of people are talking about here. And it is now that pressure shifts to Garrett Wilson. The spotlight is on him with your blunt message to Garrett Wilson being the excuses are done, big boy. And I throw it back to you, Nick Feria. We have an article in the YouTube description down below with all the links to that Athlon Sports piece. But you say now with Garrett Wilson, the excuses are over with Aaron Rodgers gone. And with a less than ideal quarterback replacement solution, this could be a fascinating a saga, a storyline of sorts in 2025.
This is a clear-cut case of be careful what you wish for. Garrett Wilson, I think most Jet fans will agree, has gotten kind of screwed to start his NFL career, particularly in the first 2 years. He had 4 different quarterbacks each of his first 2 years. He was able to put up 1,000 yards. He showed his ability to be a top up-and-coming receiver in this league. I compare very similarly to Terry McLaurin, what he had to deal with the Washington Commanders. Just so many different quarterbacks. All of them seemed to blow up in the team's face, but he continued to produce a high level. That's been Garrett Wilson for the last couple of years. Even this year, despite the team going 5-12, Garrett put up a pretty solid year, over 100 catches, 1,000 yards, close to 10 touchdowns. All these things have to come into account. But with there being tension with Aaron Rodgers, that is essentially Garrett Wilson saying, I've done really well on this, on my metrics alone, on my own work, that kind of thing. Who is another person to tell me how to do X, Y, and Z? Well, if that is the case, if that's really what happened, then we need to acknowledge the fact that the Jets have chosen Garrett Wilson over Aaron Rodgers. Now, there are a number of different factors of why that happened, particularly on the salary cap space. But when it all comes down to it, it's choosing Wilson over Rodgers. And the Jets should be commended for it because they're defending a homegrown player over a player that they bought into 2 years ago. But now the excuses have run out. Garrett Wilson's going to have to produce no matter who the quarterback is. And if he gets frustrated over a lack of passing, a lack of wins, whatever it is, then people will gradually say, well, wait a minute, buddy. You're the one who didn't want Aaron Rodgers here. You're the one who wanted to move if Aaron Rodgers was the starting quarterback of this team. You're the one who the team chose to defend in that world. So you can't just go back and say, well, you picked the wrong quarterback. They picked the quarterback that they feel will best fit you. You are the one that needs to figure it out, not them. So at the end of the day, Wilson, there's a lot more pressure on Wilson now than I think there ever has been in recent years, because he's going to have to produce and he is going to have to keep a level head no matter what happens on the scoreboard. He is going to have to play to the best of his ability. Otherwise, there's going to be some very uncomfortable conversations coming up, because if you're a receiver that is saying, I want to request a trade, or I'm thinking about a trade before the offseason begins because I don't like the quarterback, and the new quarterback that they've brought in to help you doesn't work out, then what the hell are you complaining for?
Yeah, because a direct quote from your story is sort of what you say, because there is a word. So, okay, Aaron Rodgers is gone. Let's address the obvious, which we've addressed like on every show and will continue throughout the offseason. With Aaron Rodgers, he's eventually going to be gone. There is no clear replacement plan. There's really nothing in the draft. You're at 7, and then, or it's a dart throw at some other guy, maybe pun intended. We'll see, I guess, who they go after. Okay, so you have that. There's no clear veteran quarterback. You're going to be like, oh, boom, obviously better than Aaron Rodgers, which will lead us to, well, let's just assume Tyrod Taylor's the guy because he's already on the roster. So he's going to be on the roster. He's probably the betting favorite to be the quarterback based on lack of other options right now. And here's a quote from your story, quote, there will be little sympathy if Garrett Wilson struggles with Tyrod Taylor or any other young quarterback in 2025. He chose and preferred to play without a Hall of Famer. Now he gets to deal with the consequences of that by being on a team with no clear quarterback answer, end quote. And I throw it back to you because you talk about this spotlight now being harsher on Garrett Wilson perhaps than it's ever been. Do you believe that Garrett Wilson, because let's all be honest, it's likely a lesser quarterback means lesser stats for Garrett Wilson, more likely than not, unless, again, he rises to a level that we haven't seen before. Plus, who's going to be his wide receiver too? Who's drawing other attention? There's going to be a lot of factors here that are included. Do you believe that Garrett Wilson will hold his tongue and we will not see all of his very expressive emotions, whether on the football field? Because, like, I saw some old highlights of Garrett, like when Zach Wilson missed him wildly, and he'd just go like, Jesus. And there's a lot of body convulsions, a lot of hand throwing around. There's obviously the media stuff in the scrum right after games where everyone's huddled up around Garrett Wilson and he's being very open about his feelings. What's your gut say? Does he hold his tongue in 2025 when eventual choppy waters are going to come? Or does he start letting it fly? And I'm curious, if that happens, will the media go, of giving him some of the clapback from the offseason?
I think that there's a very good chance that Wilson still puts up a fantastic year, no matter what. And that's because I see him, like I said, like a Terry McLaurin figure. He will put up numbers no matter who is throwing him the football. The question will be his attitude. And I think that's something that he has worked on over the first 3 years of his career. I think he's trying to be a better leader overall. And part of that is when the going gets tough and things aren't going well, how are you going to respond? I certainly think that with Tyrod Taylor, he had a good rapport with Taylor in training camp and a good rapport with him throughout the season. It seems that he really respects what Tyrod Taylor is as a quarterback. Dare I say, could he prefer to play with Tyrod Taylor as a starting quarterback? Maybe. We'll find out. But, if it gets to a point where the Jets are, let's say, 6-6 or 5-6, and Garrett Wilson's putting up solid numbers, but not top 5, top 10, would that still satisfy him? I think it would, because it would mean the Jets are somewhat being competitive in these games. The other thing we need to acknowledge, Garrett Wilson is not absolved. He had a very good year last year, but he's not absolved from how this team struggled down the stretch, particularly during their main losing streak in the middle of the year, because he had a miserable game against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, my gosh.
Pick that eventually just turned the game around and ended up being a blowout. That's on him. That's a drop. And he had some fumbles as well. So it's not like Garrett Wilson was perfect and he's absolved from all the Jets' messes. He's not. He's one of many reasons why the team really struggled. And the only way that that's going to be fixed is if he finds and if the team finds a quarterback that they feel most comfortable that they can win with moving forward. It remains to be seen if that'll be the case.
And now I'm curious here on Garrett Wilson. So you mentioned it in your story, and everyone knows Garrett Wilson has been breaking long-standing Jets team records. He has more receiving yards through his first 3 seasons than any Jets receiver in history through their first 3 seasons to start a career. So his numbers have been spectacular for New York Jets land. But they haven't quite reached the upper echelon of the Justin Jeffersons, Jamar Chases, Tyreek Hills. Like, he hasn't gotten 14, 15, 1,600 yards plus of receiving yards. He hasn't gotten double-digit touchdowns in any of his seasons. I mean, his 7 this past year were great because that 7 matched his first 7 through his first 2 years combined, but he hasn't been like a double-digit touchdown guy. He just joined the triple-digit club. This was the first time he ever had 100-plus receptions in a season. His contemporaries, his compadres in the league are doing that routinely. 120, 130, 140-plus guys are having crazy-ass seasons. I'm curious, how do you figure that out when we get to contract time, which may be as early as this offseason? Garrett Wilson, the Jets right now are allowed to talk contract extension. It doesn't mean the team has to acquiesce, but they are allowed to have those conversations. How do you pay Garrett Wilson, Nick Vera? Because he's not having those upper elite numbers. Now, Garrett could say it's because I've had shitty quarterbacks. That's the only reason I don't have him. But at the end of the day, are the Jets going to outwardly project, say, yeah, I guess it is because you have shitty quarterbacks. Okay, we'll just give you the number one most highest paid receiver in the league, because you're right. If we did have a better quarterback, you would. Of course not. They're not going to do that. So I wonder where we find the real middle ground here in the negotiations, because his numbers are really good, but they're not crazy compared to the overall NFL.
I think what you're going to see is the Jets, and I think what the Jets should do is jump ahead of this, is really jump ahead of this, because if you're going to pay him market value, and he's going to deserve market value, so that's well over $25 million per year in terms of the salary cap, we need to acknowledge that, yes, his numbers aren't great because the quarterback hasn't been great, but it's also because the play caller hasn't been great either. They haven't really schemed him open at the highest level. I mean, LaFleur did it his first year, had a really good rookie season. But they need someone who understands how to use a number one receiver that's used all over the field. And I think Garrett Wilson can have a very similar season next year to someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown. They've got similar skill sets. They're very good with route running. They're very good at getting open. They can catch the ball just at an unbelievable rate. All these things are true. All the Jets need to do is find the quarterback and the play caller to marry each other that work out best for both sides. And I think they can perfectly find that. But for the Jets, they need to have the question, would we rather pay Garrett Wilson $25 to $30 million right now for the work, the production he's done already, and the future production we think he's going to have? Or do we kick the can down the road and wait for him to have a career season where we're going to have to pay him $35 million when he has that kind of career year? There are teams like the Dallas Cowboys who prefer to do the latter. We'll pay our guy $35 million. We'll make him the highest paid player, but we're going to save it till the very last moment. There are other teams like the Philadelphia Eagles who just jump in front of these conversations. Jordan Mailata had 1 year as a starting left tackle and got a 5-year extension. Dallas Goedert, same thing. They re-signed everybody to long-term extensions well before they became pending free agents. That's why they've got plenty of cap space going into this offseason, immediately after winning the Super Bowl. And the Cowboys are still stuck in neutral because they're paying Dak Prescott and a record $90 million against the salary cap. Now, that can be restructured, of course, but the point still stands. If the Jets want to get ahead of this, they need to pay Wilson for his production now and his potential in the future. And that means paying him $25, $27, $30 million, making him one of the highest paid receivers in football, and then saying, we're going to build around you to get the most out of your talent.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned that figure, right? 25 to 30. I think that's the right number. I think if they were to pay him this offseason, that is the waters we'd be swimming in if we were talking about it for Garrett Wilson based on his production and how he compares to the rest of the league. As we talk about that range, 25 million per year is Devontae Smith, which is an interesting comp because he was paid after his third year, as Jeremy Fowler told me a few weeks ago on the show. So there's not a lot of precedent to pay receivers after their third year, but Devontae Smith's in that category, and he's making 25 million per year. And let me just do the quick math here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's 11 receivers in the NFL right now. They're making 25 million per year or more. And then you talk about that 25 million to 30 million range, which is making 30 million right now in the league is Amon-Ra St. Brown, just a hair over 30. It's Tyreek Hill at 30. It's Brandon Ayuk at 30. It's Jalen Waddle at 28.2. Devontae at 28. DJ Moore, 27.5, Cooper Kupp, 26.7, and then Devontae Smith at 25. Do you believe if Garrett Wilson, a contract offer was placed on the table and slid across, and it was between that 25 to 30 million range, do you believe Garrett Wilson would accept that deal right now?
I think he would, but the stipulation would have to be it's closer to 30 million than 25. So let's say 28, 29 million, if that's the case. I think that's a possibility. But at the same time, let's play devil's advocate. He can look out and say, you're about to surround me with much better players and a much better system. I know I'm going to have some big-time numbers. I prefer to wait this contract out and wait to see how well I do. Because if I do really well, I'm not pushing 30 anymore. I'm pushing 35. So it's going to be an interesting cat and mouse game. I still think the Jets should make him specifically the number one priority. You need a number one receiver to win in the Super Bowl now and be a Super Bowl contender. You've seen it the last few years. And if you don't have it, your offense is going to be stymied. You look at the Buffalo Bills this past year where they couldn't get over the Kansas City hump because they didn't have a number one receiving threat to trust and move forward with. So, again, we don't know what Garrett Wilson, the X number is that he is looking for. But if the Jets were to go up and say, hey, we'll give you $30 million right now, I think it would be smart for Wilson, and I think he will eventually take that deal.
Yeah, to your point, I think it's going to be very telling what happens this offseason. If Garrett does not get paid, again, this may have nothing to do with him. The new regime coming in could just say, hey, Garrett, there's zero chance we're paying you. We're not paying people in advance. Go strap up, and then here we go. So then maybe, like I said, we never hear the real reason. But if it's up to Garrett, and he chooses not to take the bag this offseason, chooses to bet on himself, that'll be interesting because obviously he would be confident in the ability of whoever that next quarterback is he would believe that he would be able to put up numbers with that individual. Now, if he doesn't believe that, he's like, oh boy, whoever this quarterback is going to be much worse than Aaron Rodgers. And despite the system all around, I might be in some trouble here. I better get that bag now because if I have an off year, someone could try to use that in negotiation. So to me, I think that's a fascinating potential telltale of what happens this offseason could indicate. Now, again, it's not 100% because, again, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji could have their own thoughts and feelings about paying Garrett Wilson that are beyond Garrett Wilson's means. Like he doesn't get to decide. He gets paid if they don't want to pay him. But to me, I still think that'll be an interesting telltale if we get some signs there.
I completely agree. And we're still very early in this process, and they're going to be negotiating throughout the off season. They're going to try to get stuff done. I will say that there are going to be Jet fans who will wonder why the Jets have not given Wilson a long-term extension in March, but these things take time. Not everyone is Devontae Smith, where he's just trying to get a deal done as quickly as possible. They get the agreement in April. And then 2 weeks later, they re-sign A.J. Brown to a record extension as well. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we could be looking maybe before training camp where they're still talking about it. Before minicamp, they're still discussing it and trying to find the best deal forward. The Jets are on their time. They made that abundantly clear when they decided to move on from Aaron Rodgers. They will determine what is the best course for the franchise for Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji more than anyone else. It's not going to be because Garrett Wilson wants it. It's because they want it. And I think that's a clear distinction from the previous regime.
Again, we're speaking of Nick Gastron-Feria, baby, our Jets reporter from Athlon Sports, the do-it-all man here on Boy Green Daily. We'll be opening up the phone lines in just a little bit. We got 300-plus people in the room. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe. Again, we're like 70 subscribers away from 7,500. We'll be giving away a free piece of autographed New York Jets memorabilia to one lucky subscriber. It is free to do so as we try to give back to the fans. Nick, I don't know if you've shared this anywhere, but what is your prediction? Who's going to be the starting quarterback for the Jets in 2025?
So my too early prediction is going to be that Tyrod Taylor will start, but they will draft a quarterback. I think Jet fans should be warming up to the idea of the team potentially taking a quarterback with the 7th overall pick, or even potentially trading up. They have the resources to do it, and I think they'll look at their past mistakes and say, okay, clearly we're drafting quarterbacks and we're not putting them in a good position to succeed. Instead of doing it all over again, we'll have Tyrod Taylor start the season, and then we'll have the rookie behind him for when he is ready, then he will play. I don't think they're going to rush anyone, to say the least, but I do think that Tyrod Taylor will be the starting quarterback right now to begin the season, and then they'll have the rookie quarterback waiting in the wings.
So you mentioned that certainly piques the interest of a lot of people because the Jets throughout their history have been willing to make trades to get into the top 5 to draft quarterbacks. Mark Sanchez, of course, comes to mind, the 17-5 jump. Sam Darnold, the 6-3 jump. Zach Wilson, they just had the number 2 overall pick. So they've been willing to play Frogger before. So you're saying the Jet fans should get more accustomed to that idea? Are you hearing anything, Nick Feria? Because the NFL Combine's next week. That's when a lot of those kind of conversations and groundwork can be set on potential trades like that.
Well, and I will say we are going to learn essentially where they're at with the quarterback position next week. If they come out and say, man, Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, that's our guy. We want him. We're going to try and get him. Then they are going to show, they're going to play their hand a little bit in free agency. And what I mean by that is you're not going to see a Justin Fields signing if they really like Jackson Dart. You're not going to see a Kirk Cousins signing if they really want to trade up for Cam Ward. I think that they would be more inclined to sign free agent defensive linemen. I mentioned before in an article, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, other players around the league that could fit maybe at safety. Try to find another right tackle, another receiver. Those are all going to be options for the Jets if they want to draft a quarterback in the first round. If they don't, then you could see someone like Justin Fields signing a contract with the Jets, and they'll punt that question in 2026. But as of right now, I mean, there is popularity growing with this quarterback class. No one wants to say that this quarterback class is bad, but everyone is quick to say that this quarterback class isn't as good as last year. Duh. You look at some of the historically great rookie quarterback seasons of all time. Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and of course Drake May looked really, really good on a really, really bad football team. All these things taken into account. So I certainly think that perception is growing on the quarterback class right now, but we're not going to see anything. We're not going to hear anything until the Combine. The minute that happens, and if Cam Ward and Jackson Dart play well, and the Jets are enamored, we're going to see it immediately in how this team handles its free agent business.
All right, let me play devil's advocate on something you just said, that, an indication could happen in free agency that they feel a certain way. Like you say, if they love Jackson Dart, let's just say, or Cam Ward or whoever, that, hey, they may not sign a Justin Fields type. Well, I mean, the Atlanta Falcons signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal for $180 million, then turned immediately around a month later and drafted a quarterback in the top 10. Could that possibly be, because you don't, even if the Jets love one of those guys, there's no guarantee they could get him. Surprises happen in the draft all the time. If they hold their junk in their hand, they could be left without either option. If they skip on the Justin Fields and then are not able to get whatever quarterback they come in the draft, then they'll be left to the win with Tyrod Taylor. So is there a chance they could still double dip there potentially?
Maybe, but we also have to acknowledge that Tyrod Taylor has started for teams before. He's been pretty successful, 500 career record as a starter. I will say, yeah, sure, they could bring in Justin Fields and he's part of that bridge, but wouldn't you rather in that case just pay Tyrod Taylor at the second and final year of his deal and then move forward with whatever quarterback plan you have for 2026? That would be my thing. It's if you're bringing Tyrod Taylor in to be the starting quarterback, then you need to make sure that he is going to be leading the quarterback of the future, if you will. So I don't see it as a Kirk Cousins, because the big thing with Atlanta didn't have a quarterback. They didn't have someone they trusted. So they signed Kirk Cousins, making him QB1 ipso facto, and then they drafted the quarterback. Right now, the Jets have a veteran on their team. The question is, will they pair that veteran with a young signal caller like Justin Fields, or will they draft a quarterback in the 2025 draft? That remains to be seen. But again, like I said, if I'm the Jets, that's probably the route I go down.
Fascinating. All right, let's open up the phone lines here on Boy Green Daily. Get those calls in. Nick Ferry will answer them as long as we're on the show here. That comes next right here on Boy Green Daily.
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Talking just football, man. Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. The New York Jets Football Club. Wow. Offense, defense, special teams. Watch the Super Bowl season with Boy Green. J-E-T-S. Jets. Boy Green.
Thanks for the tunes, Hep. Again, we're on Boy Green Daily. Got 400 people live in the room. We also appreciate the people that watch after the fact. Several people have reached out over the last couple of days, say they end up watching it in the early afternoon. Hey, if that's better for you, God bless America. I appreciate it. You have the right to watch whenever you please. Let's hop on over to the phone lines. That is the pinned comment on youtube.com/boygreen25. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, you just have to hop on over to YouTube. Again, that's youtube.com/boygreen25. That's a pinned comment if you'd like to call into the show by the people, for the people. Let's go to the phone lines. We got Joe the Jet here on the show. What's up, Joe?
Hey, Paul. Hey, Nick.
How you doing?
So all I'm going to just talk about here is, this whole Garrett Wilson stuff. Do you think do you think he's like in contacts with Justin Fields at all, and he's trying to sort of lure him in a sort of way? Because, I think, Nick, after hearing you talk about it and, hearing, about Garrett Wilson complaining of what quarterback, he would specifically want, I would picture it to be Fields, honestly. So what would you think about that?
It makes a lot of sense if it's Fields, right? I mean, quarterback in college, had a lot of success with him. Fields, to me, is a extremely deficient passer, but in the eyes of Garrett Wilson, this is a guy that he can trust to put up some pretty gaudy numbers. But again, Fields is a possibility, in my opinion, only if the Jets aren't drafting a quarterback with the first-round pick. That's kind of the caveat I have, and we're going to find that out at the Combine and the Pro Days over the next couple of weeks, because if they come away impressed in the interview process and they fall in love with the guy, I think they would just rather draft him, sit him behind Tyrod Taylor, and then come out and say, okay, well, we don't need Justin Fields anymore because we have the quarterback project behind our veteran. We don't need to worry about it just now.
Wow. Okay, so that's a very interesting sort of perspective if the Jets go that route. But I'm a little bit all for the whole Justin Fields bandwagon. I watched his tape back in Chicago. The Bears actually finished with a pretty decent record back in 2023. Yes, they got the first overall pick, but that was the Panthers pick originally. Yeah. And Fields actually ended the season pretty much on a high note. And, he started the season for the Steelers, had a good start with the Steelers, got benched for some reason.
Well, I can give you the reason. He's not good. He wasn't good. You look at the offense, it was stagnant. They weren't throwing the football very well. They weren't moving the ball offensively. They were losing games because the offense could not move the ball through the air. And people will say, well, look at the weapons. But when you got George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth, that's a pretty solid combination. Not saying it's top 10, but there are weapons on that Steelers team. Justin Fields, and I will say, it's one of the reasons why I'm a little patient on teams, on the Jets going all in for a guy like Fields in free agency. Justin Fields has not played well and has not been a very good quarterback during his tenure with the Chicago Bears or the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if the Steelers are going to be the ones to make that kind of move, if the Jets are going to be the ones to make that kind of move, you better make sure that this guy can throw the football, because throughout his early stages of his career, he has not.
If that's the case, yeah. I mean, he's, we've seen multiple examples of him as a passer, just not getting it done. And there's multiple occasions in the NFL, in the past where there's like guys that aren't really good passers, but they're really good runners. They're more of like, how do I explain this? They're more gamers. Like they play the game in a specific way where they just, I don't know, they just will their way into playing. I can't explain it. It's people like Tim Tebow. I think that's
the first name I thought of, Joe. When you were saying that, I immediately thought of Tim Tebow. He just sort of finds a way. He's on the field, and it doesn't always look pretty, but he just sort of figures it out,
And the funny thing is, Tim Tebow won a lot. He won a lot. He made a lot of plays with his legs, and he wasn't known to be a great passer. I'm not saying the Jets should, the Justin Fields is the answer, but it's good to put in, maybe a guy that's familiar with Garrett, at least in some sort of perspective.
Sure.
And maybe, could win us a couple of games.
Yeah.
In the vacuum of the Garrett Wilson relationship, of course it makes sense.
Right, the chemistry's already there, right?
It makes sense. But if we're going to compare Justin Fields to Tim Tebow, the man who made a playoff run by not scoring over 20 points in the majority of his starts and being forced to transition to tight end in his NFL journey.
Versatile guy. Yeah.
I mean, good Lord. I would be very, very nervous if I was a Jets fan if that was the comp that I wanted for my team. Maybe that's the way because you want the number 1 overall pick next year, but that's a gamble.
Well, we'll see come post combine, honestly, but it's going to be a fun watch, honestly, to see what they're going to do this offseason. If they trade up to number 1, I'm excited. If they sign Justin Fields, I'll try to get behind it. And if they draft Jackson Dart at 7, again, I'll try to get behind it. But whatever they do, we'll see.
Damn straight. Joe the Jet, appreciate the call, brother. And a nice lavender color. It brought out the color of your eyes. I really appreciate it, there, Joe. All right. By the way, speaking of Justin Fields action, let's get a quick YouTube super chat in here. Every time we get one of those, we hear from my daughter, Zariah Luna.
Wow.
Luca says they chose Garrett Wilson and we'll get Justin Fields for him. Hey, there you go. All right. So we're going to keep that love. Again, the part of it that I really like and enjoy is the thing we talked about with Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. Aaron Rodgers' Achilles explodes, so they're not able to obviously build that chemistry. And then obviously we have this season where it just something seemed off all year, and then adding Devontae Adams to the mix didn't seem to help. Whatever relationship issues Dr. Phil style existed between these two. But Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson already having that chemistry, and to me, I'd imagine it'd be like riding a bike, trying to get that thing back together in terms of the chemistry. What success would it have? I don't know. I mean, to be honest, a lot of these quarterback options that the Jets are considering are less than ideal anyway, and you just have to sort of accept that at the forefront. But, to me, it would still be interesting.
And let's also be fair. We're talking about the chemistry that Garrett Wilson and Tyrod and Justin Fields have. Let's talk about the relationship that Garrett Wilson and Tyrod Taylor have, because Garrett really likes Tyrod. And that was pretty apparent right away. They had a strong connection in training camp last year. So the way I look at it for New York is, do you want his college quarterback or one that he seems to get along with well and moving forward and trying to draft a rookie? That's why I say we're not going to know that answer until after the combine. If Dart, Ward, and Shedeur all perform poorly at the combine and they don't really like things, what it looks like in terms of interview process, then they could pivot to another quarterback. But I think they really want to figure out this quarterback position as soon as possible, and they want to build kind of that Buffalo Bills style of system where you have the rookie quarterback playing after the veteran.
Which was Tyrod Taylor, ironically enough. Let's get another super chat in here, our number 1 Austrian Jet fan. We appreciate it.
Wow.
By the way, that's another raffle ticket for you, our number one Austrian Jet fan. 96 raffle tickets so far this month. We appreciate it. The question's for Nick. How does Nick see the tight end room? Draft? Sign? Trade? What's happening, Nick?
I think that's another wait and see group. I haven't heard much from the tight end position. I know Daniel Jeremiah had his mock draft where the team drafted Tyler Warren with the 7th overall pick. I don't see that happening. I really don't. I think if anything, if they're sitting at 7 and they don't want to take Jackson Dart, I think they would go for an edge rusher or a defensive tackle. I don't see any scene where they're drafting a tight end with the first pick of this new regime. It's too much of a gamble. You look at Kyle Pitts, that pick blew up in the Falcons' face. Against Raiders last year with Brock Bowers, but again, by and large, if I'm the Jets, I'm going a different route with a position of higher value. Jeremy Ruckert is essentially going to be playing, I think, for his job potentially moving forward. Conklin's going to be an interesting question because he did have a good rapport with Rodgers. Will that, continue? Is that even something they would want to consider next season? A lot of questions to answer at that position.
No question. I say, fill the room with gasoline, throw a match in there and light it on fire and burn it to the ground and start anew. Plant a few trees, see what happens. I don't know, for God's sakes. It's got to be better than what we've seen. But thank you for the Super Chat, number one Austrian Jet fan. And Joe and anyone else who's struggling to call in, how do I call in if you're on other features like Twitter and Facebook? Again, you just hop on over to youtube.com and you type in Boy Green. I'll pop up there. And you just hit the latest live video. It's Boy Green Daily. We're talking about this Garrett Wilson Jets trade rumors. And the pinned comment on YouTube is how you call in. Just click that, fill out a few steps, and it'll be very easy to feel free to call into the show and ask your question and get your thoughts in here as well. Let's go back to the phone lodge. We've got a cup of Philly noodles, my favorite breakfast item here on the program.
What's going on, guys? Nick, how you doing? BG,
how you doing?
What's going on, guys? I love the intro every time you bring me in.
Yeah, there you go, baby.
So basically I said in the chat, that whole Garrett Wilson thing, it's been bubbling the whole entire season. I mean, again, BG, you know who I sat next to. I'd rather not keep repeating it, but yeah, it's been there. And it's more for the fact that from what I heard, it was the changing of the plays. You walk into the huddle, everything's different. The mini camp misses doing whatever you want at mini camps and during practices, and it settled in with him indifferently. Now it's tough for him to say that he's the voice of the entire locker room or the wide receivers core, because clearly Devontae had no problem, right? And Lazard had no problem. But to me, no matter what, they weren't baked into our future past 2 seasons, a season or two. So yeah, I think you have to lock in Garrett, because who wants to come here as a rookie or a pro and throw to anyone at all, if not at least Garrett, right? So my thing, like Nick was saying, Justin Fields, I want the duality in a quarterback, but you can't have a guy who just can't get it done day in and day out on the field. He can't load the ball out. He's not throwing the ball 40 times if we need a game like that.
He's not throwing the ball 20 times.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. You need both. It's been proven.
Hey, I will just say this real quick on Justin Fields. He had a career year with the Pittsburgh Steelers in his opportunities. He had the highest completion percentage he's ever had. Pittsburgh was able to kind of keep him in a box. 65% completion percentage. Wasn't turning the ball over all over the place. Had 5 touchdowns to 1 pick and a nice QBR. They were able to control a Justin Fields. We didn't see the sloppy, throwing it all over the place Justin Fields that we did see with the Bears. They were winning games with Justin Fields.
So what I feel then, if you guys can elaborate, and then I'll go after this, but so bringing in the guy from the Seahawks after working with Geno, who was, one of his strengths was coming out was he was a dual quarterback, quarterback, but he still had a better arm, like coming out of college, right?
Geno? Yeah.
So Geno had a better arm. Who else did he work with? God, please don't bring Sam Howell, but Sam Howell has a better arm.
I heard a few people whispering about that.
Well, you have to think about who the QB coach is now. You know what I mean? Who he's worked
with. I
guess
guess that's true. Right.
What he's dealt with. Could he take Justin Fields, and retool him a little bit? I don't know. What do you guys think?
And he's isn't the quarterback coach a former running backs coach, right? So Justin Fields.
I think that's why that could head into a marriage that way. But please do not draft a QB at 7. Nick, get in there, scream at them. Do not do it at the podiums. Just yell at them to say, Do not draft at 7 QB, please, dear God in heaven.
Well, I will say that's what Denver Bronco fans were pushing. They didn't want a quarterback at 12 because once the top guys were gone, the team didn't want to draft Bo Nix there. The fan base didn't want to draft Bo Nix there because they didn't want to deal with a quarterback that had deficiencies and taking him in the first round. That worked out pretty well for them in that first year. And in fairness, let's be frank, quarterback position is the one the Jets need to figure out. If they fall in love with a guy, whether it's Dart, Ward, whoever it is, if they fall in love with a guy, they need to get him. It's not a question of where it is in overall value. It's if they love Jackson Dart and he's a top 15 player, but you don't want to take him at 7, then you take him at 7 because he may not be available the next time you pick. Same thing with Cam Ward, same thing with Shedeur Sanders. If the Jets are a team that falls in love with a quarterback, they have to take them.
I'm under the same impression of, great Googly Moogie just putting the balls out and doing what he's got to do. I've been saying it. I get it. I say do that if you can get up to number 1. You could just pull the trigger. So for me, Bo Nix is still different in contextual, like if we put it in contents, because Sean Payton picking a QB is a little bit different than our regime picking a QB. But Muji was there. And Muji's been there. And Muji was a QB guy. And I would love to know, is he picking the ear of O'Donnell? Is he saying, bro, who do you see in here? What would you think? Right? I feel like he's gonna reach out. He's gonna make his little, his hits there. Sure. Spielman is another one, obviously, in the room now. A lot of people will say, we drafted Christian Ponders. Well, we also drafted Bryce Petty. So stop.
That's true.
Everybody makes a mistake. If it was like that, everybody have a Hall of Fame quarterback. But thanks, guys, for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Cup of Philly Noodles. Thank you very much. Yeah. Interesting. So, kind of coming off of that, excuse me, that Philly Noodles call there. What do you ultimately believe that balance is going to be here, Nick? Because, there is, when you look at the regime, I think a lot of us are trying to connect the dots that way. Oh, London was a quarterback here, which means this quarterback could be here. Oh, wait, Rick Spielman to Peyton, which means Peyton to Muji to this, to that, to this. We're all trying to do a lot of connecting of the dots here, Nick.
Yeah, and listen, that's what's going to happen at this time because there's really no information to talk about. We're not going to know until after the combine and after free agency and all these different things. But at the end of the day, this is why I say if they fall in love with a quarterback or just one guy and they say, hey, Tyrod's going to be our guy for this year. We're going to see what we have available at quarterbacks to just play around him, but we're going to win games, yada, yada, yada. So be it. They need to have their plan. And the problem with Jets fans, and I wouldn't say really a problem, but they haven't seen the team get the quarterback position right. So in their mind, it's whatever pick you make, whatever decision you make, it's going to end up being the wrong one. You tried the Hall of Fame route. It didn't work. You tried the draft route. It didn't work. Free agency. It didn't work. At some point, it will eventually work, but no one's going to give them the benefit of the doubt until it does. That's why I say, at the very least, you got to go and get the guy that you fall in love with. If they like Justin Fields and they say, hey, we think he can be the next Geno, the next Sam Darnold, if we put him in our offense, let's roll with it. Then so be it. But there's going to have to be a decision made, and they're going to need to fall in love with the guy in order for that to happen.
All right, what is more likely? So we've talked about all these potential Jets could trade up, Jets could do this, Jets could do that. What if infrared_Jets says it here on YouTube? Get your quarterback in 2026. What are the chances the Jets just go, oh boy, there's nothing here. Let's punt. Let's do whatever we have to do to get through 2025. Let's punt, and we'll try to figure this out next year. What are the chances of that?
I think it's relatively high, but it goes back to the original point of the combine being so key. Because if they don't like any of the young quarterbacks, any of the rookies, then Justin Fields could be in the conversation for that quarterback position, and they punt that question to 2026. Then you have Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor competing for the starting job this offseason. I think that is absolutely something that could happen. Not saying that it will, but it's something that could happen. And then the Jets are going to have to refocus their efforts into next season and just play good football under Aaron Glenn in year number 1. But we're not going to know that decision. We're not going to see that until after the combine. If they go out and give Justin Fields a contract, that tells me they don't like any of these rookies to draft them within the top 10. And they'll punt that conversation to 2026. But if they essentially let him walk and he signs with Pittsburgh and all these other quarterbacks sign elsewhere, then that tells me the Jets are going quarterback hunting in the draft.
Which, by the way, is always exciting when the Jets are doing that. We just hope it works for once, but it's always exciting when they're able to kind of take, kind of a peek around about what is possible here for figuring things out in the draft. We got another super chat coming in. Let's give a shout out to Ace of Spade here. We appreciate it, pal. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Tell Justin Fields Jalen Hurts equals the quarterback to pattern. Huh?
So I think he's saying Justin Fields should be aspiring to do what Jalen Hurts has done in his career.
Possible?
So Ace of Spade. Let me know if I'm wrong with that. And listen, Hurts is going to change how we look at quarterbacks because he is a passer that every major backup quarterback in NFL media will tell you is too deficient to win at the NFL level. But every all-time great quarterback is telling you, actually, he makes the right throws, the right reads, and the right decisions in every single game. He may not have the biggest arm, but neither did Tom Brady at the beginning of his career. Peyton Manning had a massive arm, but he also struggled at times with his decision making. What quarterback would you prefer to start out? Would you want the guy that doesn't make mistakes, or the guy that's learning on the fly and making mistakes but getting better in the process? You can't go wrong with either of them. You really can't. So Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy that many people aspire to be now. Many teams aspire their quarterbacks to be because he is a player that makes do with what he has. When he's got a great team around him, they're going to the Super Bowl and winning it. When he's got an okay team, they're still making the playoffs and going as far as they can. We cannot forget that Philadelphia went 4-11-1 in Jalen Hurts' rookie season when he was not the starting quarterback for every single game. He only started around week 13. The next year, after firing Doug Peterson, who won a Super Bowl with the team, after eating a $40 million cap hit with Carson Wentz, they made the playoffs with Jalen Hurts as a starting quarterback. They made the playoffs. So Justin Fields, he will be compared to Jalen Hurts moving forward. A lot of quarterbacks are going to be, because even ones with actual on-field and statistical success haven't had anywhere close to the level of playoff success that Jalen Hurts has had.
By the way, Ace of Spade said you interpreted that correctly, Nick. So thank you. He appreciates it. Booyah. By the way, speaking of Justin Fields, if the Jets go in the Justin Fields range, and there's a lot of rumors about that, what is the ceiling for the Jets? How many games can they win with Justin Fields as their starting quarterback?
I say 7 to 8.
Okay.
I'm not high on him. I haven't seen anything on the tape that tells me that this can be a good quarterback or an average quarterback at all. I mean, he's he's more deficient as a passer than Hurts was when he first started. And Hurts really only came in the Wildcat situation where he was going to run the football. He wasn't going to throw it. So I look at where Fields is now. Has he gotten better? Yes. But he's gone from an F passer to like a D passer. That's the way I see it. I don't see a starting quarterback at all. I see a guy that can come in a couple plays and on 3rd and 1, give him the football and he'll pick up the first down, that kind of thing.
So you're saying the arrow is going in the right direction then? It went from F to D.
Yeah, but very minuscule improvements.
I see. Okay,
like he was benched. Like he was benched in Pittsburgh for a reason. And they chose to stick with Russell Wilson when Russell Wilson clearly was being beaten down to a pulp later in the year, and they could have easily went with a different quarterback or made a quarterback change. They refused to do it, and that's because they didn't trust Justin Fields as a passer.
I will be sort of curious if the Jets sign Justin Fields, what the response is from the fans, because he's I would imagine of all the options that are out there in the universe, he is probably the most popular option of the name I've heard the most that Jet fans have talked about. Like, I could definitely see Justin Fields being the guy. I could see Justin Fields being the guy. And him eventually actually being the guy, right? We get that in a month, right? The Jets have signed Justin Fields, a 1-year deal for $10 million. I'll just be kind of curious because I think there's going to be everyone resharing the Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, Ohio State highlights / pictures and going, hey, man, here we go. And then I think there's going to be some that point at the substandard completion percentage outside of this Pittsburgh year and a lot of the bad that's there. So it might be a very divisive topic among Jet fans if that ends up coming to fruition, Nick Faria.
It will be. It will be because he's not. It's not like you're bringing in a proven veteran who has won and just hit free agency because of a different factor. Like when Drew Brees became a free agent, people were worried about the shoulder, but everyone knew he could play. It was just a matter of how easy, how possible would it be that he could return to his old form after the shoulder surgery. So that's not what we're seeing here. We're seeing a very deficient free agent quarterback class that's going to need contracts, and there are going to be some people that buy into it because of the relationship with Garrett Wilson and the success that he had at Ohio State. But there are going to be people that are a little, hey, this is clearly a punt to 2026. We're not going to solve our problems right now. Let's just find someone to put some butts in the seats and win a couple games here and there. I think that's more likely. But you can't go wrong with either option because you just don't know what it'll look like.
That's true. But, well, let's get to this. We just got another super chat in. Let's throw this one up on the screen. Arthur Sochka with the super chat.
Wow.
Arthur says, good defense, great offensive line, great running backs, Fields at quarterback. We can win games. Possible playoffs. Manning 2026.
No.
Wow.
If you're going for Archie Manning, you better make sure that you have 1 to 2 wins up in the upcoming schedule. Because if there's a team with 1 to 2 wins and is looking for a quarterback, they're not going to give up their pick because, for Archie Manning. They're not going to say, actually, you know what? I actually prefer the team we have on the roster, even though we won one game. Let's go in and trade back the opportunity to draft Archie Manning. That's not going to happen. And there's also the possibility that Manning essentially says, I'm not coming out next year because this will only be his first full year as a starting quarterback in college. He could very well say, I'll go in for my senior year and then I'll play football then. That's a possibility. So we don't know what's going to happen, but I can be pretty confident in saying if the Jets want Manning, you better make sure you're the worst team in football.
I'm glad that you brought this up because I hear people saying this all the time and I don't get it. So Arthur, I hope you're right, baby. I love playoffs. For the love of God, we haven't seen that in a long time. But I don't think those two things can be within each other. I don't think the Jets can make the playoffs and then go, yeah, that was great. Go wherever we go. All right, now let's trade up to the number one pick. Everyone keeps saying, let's get more ammunition, right? Teams are saying this. Let's trade the picks now for the picks of the future so we can trade up for Arch Manning. Outside of some very unique scenario, like let's say New England's the worst team of football again. They have the number one pick. Okay, they would trade it to somebody. But like, any other team that has a quarterback problem are just going to take Arch Manning themselves. Why would they trade the pick? So I feel like sometimes when we talk about the trade stuff for 2026, I don't see it because then why would the team be trading in the first place? Wouldn't they want to solve their own quarterback problems with this superstar franchise quarterback everyone calls anyway?
And let's also be fair.
Yeah.
The last time a Manning went into the draft as the de facto number one quarterback, let's be fair about this. The last time a Manning went in with the number one overall pick, he did not end up being the best quarterback of his draft class. In 2004, when Eli came out, he came out with Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger. And Ben Roethlisberger was considered the project. But Ben Roethlisberger had the best career out of all three. And he was the last one taken of the trio. If you're the Jets and you can't get Archie Manning, that doesn't mean you can't get your franchise quarterback. Because you can still find him. That quarterback class over the next couple of years is going to be very talented. It's just a matter of seeing what route the Jets would prefer. Remember, when the Bills made the playoffs their first year under Sean McDermott and Tyrod Taylor, they traded up to get Josh Allen. Josh Allen was not the number one favorite and the number one quarterback of that class. He was nowhere close to that. He was the biggest project, and it ended up working out for them. Patrick Mahomes was not the clear-cut target, the number one can't-miss prospect of 2017. But the Chiefs traded up and got him. Just because you missed out on Archie because you made the playoffs this year or you were competitive this year more so than you were in previous years does not mean you can't get your quarterback. It just means that you may have to do a little bit more. You have to have some more creative minds to get the guy eventually, whether it's a trade up at 10, a trade up at 8, any of those things could eventually happen.
Arthur, by the way, with your previous super chat, you have 3 raffle tickets for a giveaway. So thank you, Arthur, for the super chat. Let's go back to the phone line. We got the great legend Hep here on the show. What's up, Hep?
Hey, Nick. Hey, Paul. Hey, fellas. Hey, I was thinking, how about if we do next year, if we combine Justin Fields with Taylor, and instead of having one great quarterback, we have 2 medium quarterbacks. And you think that there could be any packages like that with Fields between the 2 of them? Maybe we could get a whole season.
It's certainly a possibility, but again, it comes back to the combine. If they like their quarterback, if they like the quarterbacks, it doesn't make sense to sign Justin Fields. If they don't like him, well, then they can sit there and say, yeah, let's sign Fields so he can compete with Tyrod, and we'll go with whoever has the hot hand every single week and then move forward like that.
Oh, I see. What's your take on this guy, Dart? You think he's all that, or is it just chatter?
I think there's a lot of chatter right now with all 3 of them, Dart, Ward, and Sanders. I will say each of them have qualities that make them deserving of first-round picks. This notion that because this is a weaker quarterback class than last year, that no quarterback should go in the first round, I think is ludicrous. Ward, Shedeur, and Jackson Dart are more than deserving to be first-round picks. It's just a matter of what situation they find themselves in. Like if you're Shedeur Sanders and the New York Giants draft him, he's not going to a really good situation because the offensive line stinks. The coaching staff is on a contract year where they could be fired midseason. They don't have a running game. The defense is terrible. That's not a good situation for him to be in. Right. But could it, are we looking at the Tennessee Titans in a better light because Tennessee has some weapons? They've got a solid defense. They're improving in a lot of ways. They just need to figure out the quarterback and the offensive line. That might be a better situation moving forward than compared to a team like the Giants. The Jets could be looking at the situation and saying, we've got a number 1 receiver. We've got the starting points of a solid to strong offensive line. We've got some really good defensive pieces, and we've got cap space. We're going to be able to draft a quarterback and surround him with plenty of talent to get the best out of him. That remains to be seen if that'll be the case moving forward with any of these guys. But fit at the quarterback level is the most important thing for anyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Paul.
No
Appreciate the call, Hep. Speaking of fit, that actually feeds into our next super chat here from Ace of Spade, baby.
Wow.
If not quarterback, what prospects do you see as a quote-unquote Aaron Glenn type, Nick Faria?
Well, you can throw in Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan, at the top of that list. It would be funny if the Jets, with that 7th overall pick, drafted a cornerback because I think that fits the mold very well. But if there's any particular prospect, I don't know if it's to say that it's the Aaron Glenn type, but I'll just say there's position groups that I think Aaron Glenn would be more inclined to go after. And at the top of the list is defensive line. This group was just demolished by Joe Douglas last offseason. The trade of John Franklin Myers, the acquisition of Hassan Reddick, even though he didn't play for half the season, and when he did play, he was atrocious. Well, Jermaine Johnson's injury, all these things, and you don't have anyone that can play with Quinnen Williams on the inside, and it leaves him stranded, essentially. They're going to need to figure out a running mate to Quinnen and more edge rushers because you can never have enough edge rushers. I think if you're looking at an Aaron Glenn prospect or an Aaron Glenn position of interest, it's along the defensive line because that's the foundation of how you build a really, really good defense. Look at Philadelphia. Look at Kansas City. They were the 2 teams in the Super Bowl. They were built on defense from the defensive line out.
Yeah, one more question coming in here for you, Nick, and then I'll take the last couple of calls here. For Lily and Big D asked this question, because I've heard the rumors, but I don't know where they started from, so I'll just use For Lily to launch here. Thank you, For Lily, who's a big member of the Boy Green Coffee Club. Is there any truth to a rumor post I read regarding a trade for Kyler Murray? Late to the show this morning, so if this has already been discussed, I apologize. For Lily has not been discussed, but I've heard it in the streets, but I've sort of ignored it. Is there any real truth to the rampant Kyle Murray trade rumors out there in the universe?
I haven't heard anything. It sounds like this is more just aggregators trying to think of possible situations and solutions to the Jets' quarterback problems. We'll know more at the Combine. You hear a lot of different rumors. I know the Saquon Barkley to Philadelphia signing really got started at the combine. That really picked up steam then. So we'll know more information then. But right now, I don't think Kyler is a logical solution or possibility for the Jets.
Yeah, by the way, the Cardinals, if the quarterback situation is as dire as we're all talking about, why would the Cardinals voluntarily throw themselves in that pool? It
Would
doesn't
make
seem
no
to make
sense.
any sense from that perspective. Well, Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show as always, and we'll catch you next week.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
There he is, Nick Ferriero, Jets reporter from Athlon Sports here on the program. Thank you to Nick for joining us so far this morning. And shout out to you, June, the GM. God bless my people. I'm at work, but listening to Mr. Paul and Nick. Great. I'm glad that you guys are being able to tune into the show. Whether or not you can call it or not, it's still great to get all the interactions here on the program. All right, let's go back to the phone lines here. We've got the one and only Neil Sr. here on the program. What's up, Neil?
Oh, how are you?
I'm doing swell, thanks.
Nick gives some good insights,
Sure.
Nice to be an Eagles fan,
Yeah, apparently. Going to the
Driving
Super Bowl, 3 times in 8 years? Like, yeah.
Work, nice.
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did he say he went to the parade or no? Was there a parade?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think they had it on. I'm losing track of days with all the snowstorm up here, but I believe the parade was last Friday, and I heard he and his wife were planning on going. I don't know if they did though.
Wasn't there a shooting there? There was a lot of shit going
Was there?
on.
Oh, Jesus! Oh, I didn't hear that. Oh,
I heard a lot of crazy stuff.
That's.
I don't know what the hell's going to happen at our parade. All I know is I'll be streaking down Broadway with no clothes on when the
Hey, there you go. Hopefully the weather's warm.
My plan. I don't care what the weather is.
Oh,
I'll be
wow.
so pumped up.
I appreciate the commitment.
Look, when I get pumped up, it doesn't matter what the weather has nothing to do with it. It's just the Jets get me in that craziness.
I can understand that.
I wanted to ask him about his backup quarterback. There's a guy on Philly that supposedly came in a little bit. I don't know his name. He came in.
Oh yeah, Kenny Pickett. You're talking about?
No. There's another guy.
Another guy
that came in. He threw 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He came in for Hurts briefly, and he's a big guy. He looks pretty good.
Let me see, because the only quarterback I knew they had was old Pickett. So yeah, here are the 3 they have on the team. They got Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, and Tanner McKee. He's
That's
6 foot. Oh, 6'6", 230 pounds from Stanford. Yeah, Tanner McKee. There you go.
He actually did okay last year. Look at his stat line. I think he came in and he got 2 touchdowns and no picks or something. In a game or 2 or something like that. He played.
Oh, yeah, I have it here. Yeah, he played in 2 games last year. It was at the end of the season. Oh, because Kenny Pickett got hurt with the ribs. Yeah, he had wow. So his 2 games were this. He played against the Giants and Cowboys. So the Cowboys, he had 2 touchdown passes, 75% completion percentage, but it looks like he played Bailey. He only threw 50 yards. And then against the Giants, he had a 66% completion percentage, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, 100 quarterback rating, didn't throw a pick. So, yeah. Some nice numbers in spot duty. That was the first moments of his NFL career this past season.
Now let's look at Malik Willis. I heard he's made some improvements as well last year.
Yeah, Green Bay. Yeah, he was in Green Bay. Yep.
And he played well. I mean, my problem here is if you don't have a quarterback in the draft this year that you really are not looking, besides the first 2,
sure,
that really are going to be developmental, or you really have to take a shot. I'm more of the ilk of going after somebody else's, draft pick from a year or 2 ago that already has a head start.
Oh, interesting.
That's learned the pro system, that's been on the field, that knows what the NFL is about. They talk about this Hendrick Hooker. They got Malik Willis.
Sure.
You have these guys, which I'm more, in the line of taking somebody like that won't cost us a ton and, see how we roll with that as a backup to Tyrod Taylor in case something happens to him. And we might hit, something, with that.
That makes sense. All right.
Otherwise, if we want to put asses in seats, I mean, really the only 2 options to put asses in seats is going to be take a flyer on Kirk Cousins. Hopefully he has a great camp and a year removed from the Achilles, he starts to look good again.
Sure.
and we catch lightning in the bottle with him. Like, he did have a great not great, but a good first half of the year last year before he fell apart, and he supposedly had a shoulder injury. So I don't know, maybe Kirk Cousins. We got to eat somebody that's going to give us incentive to watch. Fields is just not that guy for me, Paul. I mean, look, to me, I'd rather. I'll be honest with you. Daniel Jones has better statistics than he does. At least he made the playoffs with the Giants.
I guess that's true, and they won a game, against the Vikings.
He's the same structured quarterback. The only difference being Daniel Jones has about a 64% completion percentage career-wise, where Fields has under 60 or 60. There's a difference. Daniel Jones also, you look at the very similar career paths. Daniel Jones played with a shitty Giants team, no weapons, no offensive line, running for his life. And, this is what he played with. And, everybody in New York, he could be a great comeback story for us, like Geno Smith was for Seattle. I mean,
maybe.
You know what I mean, Paul? I don't, and to me, look, Daniel Jones runs for 700 yards, just like Fields. Sure. He has, but he's been to the playoffs with a Giant team. Nobody really talks about that. This guy's got so my point being is we're talking about, which bag of trash looks better. But the reality is, again, I think we could get Daniel Jones for less than you could get pay for Fields, because it seems like the whole Fields thing is heating up. And like Farias said, and he made some good points, if he was so goddamn good, even when Russell Wilson was hurt, they still didn't go to him.
That's true.
So what does that tell you? When you're watching him in practice and he's underthrowing, overthrowing, not having any accuracy issues after how many years in the league? This was his third year. What was this?
For who?
Third year? Fields. How many years has he played? This was
he just finished off his rookie contract, so that has to be his fourth or fifth year. Well, what is he? He's what draft class was that? Let me just pull it up. Let me see here. Yeah, because he didn't sign a new contract. He was traded over. So he just completed his rookie contract, whatever that was worth. So, yeah, he just finished his fourth year. There you go.
I mean, if you want to shoot for something, again, I'm sure they're on the phone with trying to manipulate something with Stafford.
Yeah.
They're trying to do something with Kyle Murray. That would be a great pickup, but I doubt the Cardinals are going to part with him.
I do, too. I doubt that, yeah.
And then you have Derek Carr, which is an interesting thing. I mean,
possible.
Derek Carr, at least with Derek Carr, you have a chance to holding on to Devontae Adams. And I got to tell you something. Without Devontae Adams, our wide receiver room is going to have a huge hole in it. And if we could somehow keep him on, restructure him, and pair him up with Carr, there's something at least will get people interested in going to the games, more.
Yeah.
Right, Paul?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, what's your top three things? Everybody's Fields. He's the flavor of the week. I just don't see it. He's not as good as Tyrod Taylor. He's going to be behind Tyrod Taylor. And then what? We're going to bring him in, and what's he going to do? Catch fire? And, he's not going to – he's already down the road. Daniel Jones is 27 years old also. They're both the same age. I just have this sneaky feeling, that I would bring Daniel Jones in at least to compete in camp if we can get him on the cheap. He'd be a good backup to Tyrod. You don't have to change anything game plan wise or play calling structure wise, because he's as good a runner as any. He's very durable. And I just think with the Giants, I mean, they stunk with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were terrible.
And when they were good, he took them to the playoffs and won a playoff game. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, we haven't done that in a while. You asked me what's my top three, Jets quarterback plan. I have that somewhere on one of these lists here. Well, I know the top two. It was if these are possible. I don't know. Is my number one option is, of course, bring Sam Darnold back home. If Sam was interested in that, if he was open to that, I'd love to bring Sam back. He's 27 years of age. We finally have the protection and playmakers that Joe Douglas promised him a bunch of years ago, but never delivered. So if Sammy is open to that, I'd 100% be open to it. I don't know if the Rams are really going to trade Matthew Stafford to get a veteran in here. Matt Stafford still looks like he's got some guns. So, both of those sort of make a little bit of sense. All right, we got more phone calls to get to. Also, a few super chats coming in here. Chef Kevin Gilbert has been a member for 5 months. He had something to say.
Wow.
Thanks, Chef. OMG, Daniel Jones is trash. Giant fans, SMH. Okay, Chef Kevin Gilbert is not a fan of Daniel Jones, so sorry on that one, Neil. He was not a fan of that, so I apologize. Arthur Sojka here, another YouTube super chat coming in.
Wow.
For 4-2 when they benched him, he's talking about Justin Fields. I'll take it again. I think Justin Fields has a lot of problems. Quite frankly, any quarterback we bring in is going to have warts. We just sort of have to accept that, obviously, right at the beginning of this thing, that obviously that's a factor. And knowing that, then you say everything else. And with that being said, the Steelers were able to control Justin Fields last year. He was a game manager, and he didn't turn the ball over a lot, had a decent completion percentage, and had some of those numbers. Can the Jets do that same thing? I don't know. Arthur Sochko, by the way, a couple more raffle tickets for you for our contest, so we're keeping track of behind the scenes. Let's go back to the phone lines. Let's go to Twitter. Joe went through the process of calling in. Wow, what a setup you have here, Joe. This is spectacular. And just so you know, you're on mute before you start talking there. You're on mute.
Hey, how
there
are
you?
you?
Go. Yeah, I'm doing well, Joe. Thanks for calling in.
Appreciate you liking the setup. It's kind of a work in progress still. But yeah, a couple things. I wish Nick was still on the phone because I can't disagree more about Tyler Warren. And granted, Penn State is where I went to school and I'm an alumni and season ticket holder and all that. But the kid brings great character. We know we're looking for character in the room. He is a great blocker for the run game. He's a great weapon that as a receiver. And I don't know that we can really rule out a tight end yet until we see what we do in free agency. We could fill and plug some of these holes. If you go and sign a Justin Fields, or you trade for another quarterback, you're not drafting a quarterback. If you bring in some defensive linemen, which are going to be much more abundant than some other positions in free agency, it's going to make sense that we plug the hole with someone who can make an impact day one. Because the reality is, and you nailed it a few minutes ago, there will be warts on whoever the quarterback is. That's just a given.
100%.
So completely don't think that ruling him out is something we can do just yet. And I'll tell you what, the combine next week, he's going to get in the room with people. And I've had a chance to sit down and talk to the young man, and he's going to wow everybody. His football IQ is off the charts. The kid's hungry, passionate. He gives everything he has every day. And for anyone that's going to go and say, hey, look, he only really had one great year at Penn State, that's completely right because he wasn't starting. We had a ton of tight ends ahead of him, whether it was Theo Johnson, Brenton Strange, Pat Freiermuth. We kind of become tight end university, not just LBU. And would just love to hear your thoughts on
I am intrigued. I see to your point, Joe. I see a lot of people immediately shutting it down because there are two things that come up immediately from Jet fans. Well, come on. Now we're going to take a tight end. What about Brock Bowers last year? And to me, nonsense.
Yeah,
if the Jets, 100%, apples and oranges. And to me, it's all about the positional value. For instance, go back to 2020. I love CeeDee Lamb. I would have loved CeeDee Lamb, but I came to a realization during that pre-draft process, the Jets were not going to take CeeDee Lamb unless all of the offensive tackles are off the board because left tackle is more valuable than wide receiver. So despite the fact I seem to love CeeDee Lamb, I'm like, well, the Jets, it would be crazy to go for this to this over the same thing. Fast forward all these years later, Olu Fashanu. When everyone was screaming for Brock Bowers, and I thought it would have been fun if they ended up doing it, I'm like, oh, boy, Jets really don't. They have Tyron Smith for 1 year, but how long is that going to last? Then we go to Olu. So, again, to me, I agree 100% with what you just said, apples to oranges. Our tight end room stinks. I mean, it's god awful. I told Nick Ferry earlier, I want to burn the room to the ground just so we could have something different than what we've had. Tyler Warren, to me, seems like a intriguing possibility. You don't have to compare him to Brock Bowers just because they both play tight end, and thus, if he's not Brock Bowers and he's not worthy of being it, I think that's ridiculous. Every draft class is its own animal to itself, and the Jets have really ignored the tight end position for the last 15 years. We haven't had a guy since Dustin Keller. And while Tyler Conklin had some nice production, it just didn't seem to – it always came in garbage time. It seemed like Tyler Conklin racked up a bunch of stuff when we're losing, and then we're like, oh, halfway decent numbers. But in terms of the impact on the team and on the offense, it seems to be lacking. So the Jets need that presence. So if someone told me, hey, Boy Green, the Jets ended up with Tyler Warren. Like right now, I'm seeing a lot of the comment section live right now saying Warren would be a reach at 7. Warren would be a reach at 7. I see a lot of people say that this player would be a reach at 7. But, oh, boy, and I'm not saying some of these people are saying this right now, but I've seen it in the past. This person would be a reach at 7. But, at 10, he'd be available, or 12. To me, we're getting too cute. You start fucking around trying to move around the draft and maximize it. I think that's where you get lost. I think that's where you lose players. You're trying to get too cute, trying to pick up an extra third. Just get the best player. If you think Tyler Warren can be a difference maker on the offense, then for God's sakes, booyah, have conviction, grab your balls in your hand and go draft him if you think they can have that sort of impact.
Yeah, and in an ideal world, right, you could trade back and still select him. But you get too cute when you do that, and you could be left holding your dick in your hand, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I don't, again, I'm not against trading back, but again, you have to be really positive you're going to end up with the guy if that's your guy. And if it's your guy, just take him at 7, right? Why get cute with it?
It takes 2 to tango, too, for trade back scenario. So some people just trade back just to trade back, and they get no value or lose value. And I'm like, whoa, what are we doing here? If an offer you're like, all right, I guess we're taking Tyler Warren at 7. Then all of a sudden, bring. Oh, hello. Yeah, we're going to give you a quadruple helping. We're like, whoa, Jesus, this is so good. Okay, we're willing to bump back a few spots because this offer is so overwhelming. But just to call you plan on taking a player, and then the offer is sort of middling. You're like, well, I'm not just going to trade to trade. Like, trade if there is some conviction, there's some reason to trade. That to me is important.
Yeah, and to be fair, I haven't looked at the free agency class for tight ends yet, but I
not
don't know
great
anyone off the top of my head. And
not great.
To your point earlier, I'm going to argue there is not a worse position group on our team right now.
Yeah, it's awful. Just
is
awful.
there?
Let's see. So, the remaining people on the roster are like
quarterback,
Jeremy Rucker. Yeah, right. I guess quarterback because of the impact and stuff. You can make that argument. But no, to your point, Tyler Conklin's a free agent. Kenny Yeboah is a free agent. Zach Kuntz is a free agent. And Jeremy Rucker sucks. I mean, Jet fans don't want to say that because of he was a Jets fan growing up when he was a kid, and apparently that's unpopular to say. He sucks. He's been terrible. Every time he's gotten opportunities, drops the ball all over the place. And people say, well, in that 1/3 preseason game, he had a one-handed catch. I don't give a shit. Come on, man. Where's the production? So 100%, you can make a very strong argument it's the weakest positional group on the roster.
If he was someone who should be starting, given the group that we've had, he would have been starting, right? I mean, he didn't beat out Conklin. I mean, Conklin's a serviceable player, but he's not anyone that's keeping a star on the bench, right?
Definitely not.
Yeah, and I mean, my favorite player in the draft, again, Penn State bias is Abdul Carter. If I was going to trade up to 1, I'm trading up for him.
There you go. I love it.
Not a huge fan of the quarterbacks in this draft. I think next year, there's a whole bunch of guys. Again, another Penn State or Drew Aller, I think will pop up. But I mean, Manning and some of the other guys that are going to be in there, I personally feel better about. But it'll be interesting to see what we do.
But I'm glad that, Joe, that you called in the show and pounded the table for some Tyler Warren action. And, Joe, we're live every single day, so I hope you call back in the future, pal.
Yeah,
beautiful.
Very cool.
All right, great.
I've never done it before. Do I sound all right? My microphone?
Oh, yeah, you sound all right. I would just say, I don't know what mic you're using. So in the future, just to get yourself a little bit louder, whatever the mic is having it a little closer to you. So wherever that is. Oh, yeah, much better. Okay,
all
perfect.
Right,
I guess I should have said something at the beginning, but that's okay.
All good.
So we'll have you back in the future for sure. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, appreciate it. And good setup there, too. Nice Star Wars action. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. We've got Indy Jets here on the show. What's up, Indy?
BG, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, my man.
Really wild take here, okay?
Okay.
What if we trade 7 for Dak Prescott?
Sign me up. I love Dak Prescott.
And here's why.
All right.
We know the Cowboys have got their whole new coaching regime.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they have in Dak, and I think they want one of those 2 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And we trade Dak. They eat a little bit of Dak's money. We give them 7. They'll take the 12 and 7, combine those 2 picks, move up, and move up to 1. It worked for us. They eat some of Dak's money. They get the quarterback they want. They get to start fresh.
I love it. Again, I'm a big Dak Prescott guy. I know I'm seeing everyone like reacting very harshly in the comment section here that they would hate to see it, but to me, Dak Prescott is a really talented quarterback that has done a lot in this league. And while there's been an injury or two here or there that you can nitpick at, Dak Prescott has been a wildly productive quarterback in the National Football League.
That is just I don't know if it was I don't know where I saw it at, but somebody had throw that scenario out there, and I'm like, it really makes sense for both teams. They get it. They they're stuck in that Dak. They've been stuck with him. He's only done so much. I don't think he can do much more for Dallas, and part of that is just the ownership.
Sure, right.
I think the Dallas Cowboys really want, Deion Sanders to come in and bring his son with him.
Yeah, that would be an eyebrow raiser, certainly for sure. I don't know how the Cowboys would feel about trading Dak, as Brian Schottenheimer is promoted from within. He's been singing the sweet praises of Dak. But if it's possible, if it's on the board, I would love to bring in a guy of Dak Prescott's capabilities. That'd be wonderful and would give us a clear answer to me at the quarterback position.
Yeah, just throwing that out there as a possibility.
Okay.
We were talking about Kyler Murray and everybody. I think Dak Prescott's probably more of a realistic trade if we were going to trade somebody than a Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, that works for me, Indy. So I like it. Love putting that into the universe, pal. Appreciate you. Like I said, I don't know how realistic it is to anything, but hey, man, if Dak Prescott's willing to join the Jets, let's go. I don't know how my father would feel about that, but that's neither here nor there, I suppose. But hey, now let's get another super chat coming in here. This is from Mr. Chill 211 King coming up here on the show.
Wow.
Thanks, pal. You just got a raffle ticket. I'll explain what that means for people that are not privy to our raffle ticket information. We'll do that here in just a second, but let's read your super chat, pal. I would like to sign Fields. What do you think it would take to get Olave from the Saints? I'd like to get the Ohio State thing going here and draft Tyler Warren. Wow. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. So I'd like to sign Fields, Mr. Chill 211 King says. So first off, Fields totally on the board, totally possible. They could totally sign Justin Fields, so that could be possible. Now let's go to Chris Olave. He has a lot of concussion issues. That's the scary thing, and those are nonlinear injuries, and it's not like you hurt an ACL and then how you recover that to what it is for a concussion. Concussions are sort of a mysterious injury and how you recover. And he's had so many of them. That's a very scary portion of the exam. New Saints regime taking over, obviously, with Kellen Moore coming in. So that always opens up the possibility for players to shake. Garrett Wilson obviously would love it. I've heard some of these rumors earlier this offseason. What would it take? Well, let's see. Well, Chris Olave came in the same class as Garrett Wilson. So he's 3 years into his career. The Saints, have to make a decision on his fifth-year option in early May to decide his future. So I don't know. He's been productive. Let me see on games played for Chris Olave. That'd be the other thing I would want to check here. Let's see. So his first 2 years were really good. They were Garrett Wilson-ish years, around 1,000 yards, 70 to 80 catches. Ready at 72 his first year, 87 his second, 4 to 5 touchdowns. Didn't produce a ton of touchdowns. Same thing like Garrett Wilson. So he had 2 very Garrett Wilson years his first 2 years, and last year was totally destroyed by injuries. He only had 32 catches for 400 yards and a touchdown. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if it would take a first-round pick because of all the injuries. So maybe, and he's 24 years of age, he's still incredibly young. I don't know, maybe a Braylon Edwards package. So it's like a 3 and a 5, something like that. And I don't know if the Saints would want to do it to move on from Olave, but that would be the package I'd sort of kick around to see. And again, I'd have to know his health status before I pulled the trigger on that. I don't mind the Ohio State thing. Let's go. Ohio State has been wide receiver U for a long time. And hell, Joe sold me on Tyler Warren as a very exciting, fun option. So, yeah, man, all of that sounds pretty gosh darn good to me as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, let's go. Let's go, baby. Also, let's reveal this for all the people that are watching right now. Again, we have two raffle contests going on right now. Well, two giveaways, rather, is a better way to put this. So let's throw this up on the screen. Mr. Chill 211 King, you have a raffle ticket for this contest. We're giving away a New York Jets signature football. It's a full-size NFL football. Comes with a stand NFL-branded manual pump. Again, the ball ships deflated, but it's great for the fan cave, great for the office. It's terrific. A limited edition collectible. It's got Garrett Wilson's signature on here, Elijah Vera Tucker, everybody, Quincy Williams, everybody on the team. It's terrific. Aaron Rodgers, a New York Jets Nike Salute to Service long sleeve, plus a custom laser engraving Jets Boy Green gift package. Every raffle ticket for this giveaway is $2.99 a pop. That's either a Boy Green Coffee Club membership or prerequisite super chats. You can send them all in, and I'll be keeping track of all of them. For instance, Mr. Cho 211 King, you sent in $5. $3 went to the raffle ticket, and you have $2 left over. So if you send future super chats anywhere throughout the month of February, those count towards more raffle tickets. So that's how it works. So you have a raffle ticket for this contest, my man. And we're also doing a free giveaway for subscribers. Again, at the start of the show, we're like somewhere in the ballpark of 70 subscribers away from 7,500. Once we reach 7,500 subscribers, we're giving away a free piece of autographed New York Jets memorabilia. I'll pick a subscriber at random. And once I pick that winner randomly, I'll reach out to you, get your address and shipping information, and booyah, I'll send that right to your house. So that'll be a free gift from the Boy Green YouTube channel. So shout out to you and everybody for helping support the show and spread the gospel. Again, it's free to contribute, to like the video, hit subscribe. If you want to go the extra mile, you can have a chance to win some awesome prizes as we do giveaways every single month. Well, everybody, thank you so much for jumping on the show. We got 600 people in the room live. Like the video, hit subscribe. We also appreciate the people that are tuning in after the fact. I have to get ready for my remote radio show because we're still packed in from snow. We've got 2 or 3 feet of snow. And it's a state of emergency here in Oswego, New York. So I've got snow shoveling to do and also to get ready for my virtual radio show here that's in Syracuse, New York. But I can't get out of my house, so we'll be doing that remotely. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in as always. We'll be back tomorrow morning live for another edition of Boy Green Daily at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And God bless and take care.